The Daniel Jones era as New York Giants starting quarterback is over. That news broke early on Monday morning that the Giants, 6 years into Jones' career, will bench Daniel Jones and start Tommy DeVito at quarterback this Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The first part of that news, Jones being out, is probably not surprising at all. The second part of that news, DeVito being in, has to be considered a bit of a surprise. And we will break all of that down on this edition of the Valentine's Views podcast. Tony DelGenio joining me here as we usually do on Mondays. Tony, good morning, and quite the interesting Monday morning.
Yeah, definitely. Lot more interesting than just parsing over the latest loss.
that indeed. All right, Giants fans, please, before we get into this, just please remember, like, share, subscribe to the channel to show us a little bit of love if you feel inclined to do so. Anyway, Tony, no shock at all that Daniel Jones is riding to the bench. All due respect to Diana Russini of The Athletic, who reported the other day that Jones, might be staying as Giants starting quarterback. We wrote that because, Diana's a respected NFL insider, and we felt we had to, but there was really no choice here. None. I didn't think there was any choice. I didn't think that the Giants could subject Jones to the ugliness that would have occurred at MetLife Stadium on Sunday if they trotted him out there as the starter. So, I mean, do you agree with that there was really no choice for the Giants but to move on?
Yeah, I thought that the bye week was always going to be the time when they would make a decision. First of all, because of the $23 million injury guarantee. And, I don't know how much that factored into their thinking about things, but it's a non-negligible amount of money that they'd have to pay next year if he winds up getting hurt. But I think that the deal was sealed in the Giants' last game when they couldn't defeat arguably the worst team in the NFL, and they couldn't do so largely because their offense had trouble moving the ball against what many people consider the worst defense in the NFL. And I think you saw in that game all of Jones's weaknesses on full display. I mean, if you were going to have a piece of evidence to make a decision on, that was really the perfect game to use as your evidence, because we saw Jones doing the things that we've grown frustrated over the years seeing him do, and that is on waiting too long to get the ball out, which was really evident on the flea flicker play where they had two different guys wide open, and he still managed not to get the ball off before he got sacked. We see it on the decision making and which receiver he's going to go to on the plays near the goal line, where he opted to go short to Tyrone Tracy on, I guess it was 3rd and 4, I think the 11-yard line, instead of trying to hit Malik Neighbors on the slant at the goal line, or Theo Johnson, who was running up the middle and had an opening. And then you also see it on that Tyrone Tracy pass, the inaccuracy, the fact that he throws behind receivers so much. And so all the things that people, I think, criticize Jones for, you have seen on display this season, and in particular in that game. And gee, after what I just said, I'm surprised to be called a Daniel Jones excuser.
Yeah, I was hoping you didn't see that, Tony. But we do have a comment that says Tony is a Daniel Jones excuser, and I'm sorry, but we very, very nicely will disagree with that. But listen, you're absolutely right. This season for the New York Giants, way back when Joe Shane said this is the year for Daniel, I have consistently said that was never Joe Shane saying, pounding his fist on the table and saying, I know Daniel Jones is a franchise guy. I know, he can take us on a deep playoff run. That was Joe Shane saying, this is the year once and for all for Daniel Jones to show us, whether or not we can go forward with him. And I wrote this the other day, Tony. The Giants don't have a great offensive line, okay? But they do have a functional, competent offensive line, even with Andrew Thomas not being there for the remainder of the year. They've been functional. They're okay. Jones has had time and opportunity to deliver passes that need to be delivered. They have Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, a promising tight end in Theo Johnson. They have receivers to throw the football to, including, Neighbors is tremendous. And Saquon Barkley's in Philadelphia, but Tyrone Tracy is having a very good season. You look at all of the analytics, the Giants are in the top half of the league in rushing efficiency, all of that. Their running game is fine. Tyrone Tracy's on pace to gain more than 1,000 yards, despite not starting until week 5, I think it was. But so everything is there on the offensive side of the ball. Everything is there for the Giants to be a functional, capable offensive football team. And yet here we are with them being, and throw in Brian Daboll, the head coach, pushing all of his chips to the table and taking over play calling. And whether he's been great at that or not, that's a different debate. But here we are, 10 weeks, 2-8, worst offense in the league, lowest scoring offense in the league. And the only common denominator, the only consistent thing you point to is quarterback play. I think you can probably, Joe Shane said the other day that we're not far off. He thinks they're better than 2-8. I think they have a better roster than 2-8. They don't have a Philadelphia Eagle roster, but they're probably a 5-5 team with better quarterback play. So Daniel Jones has shown us his limitations and how his limitations hold back that offense.
Yeah, and the fact that most of the Giants' losses have been one-score losses, I think tells you that quarterback really is the problem. And it's such a weird thing. The quarterback that Daniel Jones is today is not the guy that I saw in 2019 under Pat Shurmur. He was throwing the ball downfield. He was taking advantage of opportunities. He was very raw, but he was a guy who looked like he had a ton of potential. But ever since that first year, Joe Judge and Jason Garrett kind of put him in bubble wrap the 2 years that they had him, and
they beat the playmaking out of him, Tony.
They whatever was there, and we don't, and maybe it was a mirage. What I thought I saw anyway in 2019, but whether it was that or whether it was the terrible offensive lines and how beat up he got and all the injuries he had that took it out of him, but whatever it is, he's a quarterback that is just so conservative. It's just untenable. And it's funny, I watched 2 games yesterday, and actually yesterday was kind of a nice day because I didn't have to watch NFL games with that kind of tenseness that I feel whenever the Giants are gonna play. I could just sit back and just kind of enjoy the games. But I watched 2 games yesterday, and so last night I watched the Sunday Night Football game, and what a treat that is to watch Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert flinging the ball all over the place down there, and you kind of see what a great quarterback actually can be and can do in a game. That was a tremendous game to watch, even though it was a little sloppy in places. And then early in the day, I watched the Jets play the Indianapolis Colts. And I'm sitting there watching Aaron Rodgers like absolutely unable to move the ball downfield. And he's dinking and dunking and throwing these passes short of the sticks all the time. And I said, "Oh my God, Aaron Rodgers has turned into Daniel Jones." It's like, and what is that? Is it that he doesn't have faith in the Jets offensive line? Is it that the injury that he had last year, he's still worried about doing? Is it just that he's old and he feels like one more hit and he's going to be done? But I feel like Aaron Rodgers isn't even looking downfield, and he's got Garrett Wilson, he's got Devontae Adams. I mean, he's got guys to throw to downfield, and he's throwing these little passes short of the sticks all the time. And I just wonder whether, and I mean, Daniel Jones, was never anywhere close to Aaron Rodgers, but you just wonder what happens to NFL quarterbacks sometimes, and what they do. Whatever the reason is, Daniel Jones kind of got the not the competitiveness, because he was always competitive, but he got the kind of gunslinging mentality he came into the league with, and he seemed to have that his first year. It got beaten out of him one way or the other, whether by coaching or injuries. And I don't think at least I will ever understand it, but it's clear that from the Carolina game that it's gone now.
Right. And I will always give Daniel Jones credit for the way he's carried himself. I will always give him credit for putting his body on the line, but it's become crystal clear that it's time to move on. In fact, that it's probably past time to move on. It's really unfortunate that we get to this point and the Giants don't have that quarterback of the future in the building already. And, that they weren't able or chose not to pick that quarterback, in the 2024 NFL draft. We know how hard they tried to move up for Drake May. And it's very difficult to say that, picking Malik Neighbors at number 6 was the wrong thing to do, because he's a terrific player. And yet, you had J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, and Bo Nix. And of course, Nix is the only one playing right now because Penix is behind Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. J.J. McCarthy's out for the season. But what Bo Nix is showing, and maybe Bo Nix wouldn't have done this in New York. Maybe he's in the right place with the right coach who wanted him, because of the system that he runs and all of that. But Bo Nix is showing, what a young quarterback can bring to a franchise. They're not going to win the Super Bowl this year or next year, but they have hope now. The Washington Commanders have hope now. The Chicago Bears, as much of a mess as they are, they have hope with Caleb Williams. The Patriots have hope with Drake May. And it's unfortunate that the quarterback who could give Giants fans hope isn't in the building yet.
Yeah, and so they're going to have to wait at least one more year to get that guy, and it's not clear that they'll even do it next year. And this is always the case when you're looking to find a quarterback.
Absolutely, you never know. And let's talk about the decision that the Giants have apparently made. And as we do this show, it's about 9:45, on Monday morning here on the East Coast, and Brian Daboll is expected to talk to media in 2 hours at 11:45. I'll be on that call. We'll have full coverage of that call at Big Blue View. So please, watch us on, watch our social media. Come back to Big Blue View for full coverage of that. But I'm really, really interested in hearing Daboll explain why they chose Tommy DeVito instead of Drew Lock. The only thing that I can say, Tony, is I think that this is throwing the fan base a bone. I really do. I think this is throwing the fan base a bone. We did our poll last week, and Giants fans, you said they want to see DeVito. The majority of Giants fans did. Giants are 0-5. They're terrible. The fan base is disappointed, disgruntled, disgusted, whatever you want to say. But I tend to think that this is about, trying to give the fan base something to look forward to.
Well, I can't say I'm as interested in that news conference as you are, because Brian Dable, to me, never says anything.
This is
He
true.
he goes
This is
he goes
true.
he stands on his head figuratively to try to not say
I would
anything.
like to see Dable try to stand on his head. Yes,
So,
I
so if
would.
you and the Giants press corps actually get him to say something interesting about that decision, then props to all of you, because he's the most frustrating person to listen to in these press conferences, I think. Yeah, I was trying to think about how to interpret it, and I, I a couple of thoughts in my mind. One of them being that they brought Locke in to see whether they could work with him and turn him into something more than he had shown so far. And he did show flashes. I mean, he had that game. What was it, Monday night or Sunday night, where he beat the Eagles and drove
Mhm.
them downfield and threw a touchdown pass. I think it was to Tyler Lockett in the closing minute to defeat the Eagles. That unlike Jones, Drew Lock is somebody who doesn't mind throwing the deep ball. He likes to do that. He just isn't that accurate. And I wonder whether they brought him in thinking that, well, maybe I can work with him. Maybe this is a much lesser version of the Josh Allen that I turned into a great quarterback, 7 years ago, or over a period of time, 5 to 7 years ago, and we can make him into something more than he's shown so far. And that after a season of working with him, they've decided that well, what we've seen of Drew Lock is as much as we're going to see out of Drew Lock. He just doesn't have the accuracy. He does have the willingness to get the ball downfield, but he just doesn't have the accuracy. He doesn't have the pocket presence that you need to be a really good quarterback. And so therefore we're gonna look at DeVito and try to make a decision before the end of the season. Is DeVito worth even keeping on the squad next year as a backup quarterback? And he showed some flashes as a rookie and hasn't gotten a chance to do anything this year. Can we work with him behind a better offensive line and see whether he's actually worthy of being the backup quarterback next year? And I think that's a fair reason to go with him instead of Locke. But whether it's the actual reason, I think I have no idea, and I wonder whether we'll ever know.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll ever know as well. It is also interesting that, I had thought about the fact that it could be a referendum on what they've thought of what they've seen from Drew Lock so far. If they don't think, that Lock is the guy they could go forward with as the bridge quarterback next year, maybe DeVito is that guy. We'll see. But I do find it interesting, that the Giants brought Drew Lock in, and Drew Lock is not the choice here in this situation. I'm interested in whether Daniel Jones is even active on Sunday. I think the Giants will probably make Daniel Jones QB3, and that we will not see him play again unless it's an absolute emergency, over the next 7 games. So very, very interesting stuff. Here's something else that's odd, Tony. I saw somebody online say that the choice of DeVito is about tanking, and I'm not necessarily going to buy that, because I don't think the Giants do that. They framed it last week as a football decision and all of that. But here's the really interesting thing. Giants fans voted in our poll that close to 60% wanted to see DeVito instead of Jones or Locke. Giants fans will be happy about this decision. Giants fans will enjoy watching Tommy DeVito play if he plays well. But there's a whole lot of Giants fans that are going to be mad if the Giants actually win games over the next 7 weeks too. so I find that kind of an interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, and I don't worry too much about that aspect of things myself, because we see over and over and over again that you don't know where the best quarterback in the next draft is going to come from. And how often has the best quarterback in the draft been the number one pick? Quite often it's not. And even when
not in the last 2 drafts, Tony.
Yeah, and even right. I mean, at this point, and of course, it's so early you get to draw conclusions, right?
But it certainly doesn't look that way.
And nobody would call Caleb Williams the best quarterback in the draft just based on the evidence of this particular season. Right now, he might very well turn out to be that, right?
Right.
And even when the number one pick maybe is the best quarterback in the draft, doesn't mean that he's necessarily good. And so you have Trevor Lawrence sitting there with his $50-some-odd million a year contract, and there's a big question as to whether he's actually the long-term answer for Jacksonville or not. And of course, that draft, the 2021 draft, even though it was loaded with quarterbacks, is there one great quarterback that came out of the 2021 draft, even though there were a bunch of guys drafted in the top 12, I guess it was. You mentioned Bo Nix a little while ago, and Bo Nix was the 6th of the 6th quote unquote big quarterbacks to come out of this most recent draft. And as you say, he looked really good last Sunday. And so is he going to turn out to be a great quarterback? You just don't know where the great quarterbacks are going to come from.
Absolutely. Tony, anyway, the last 7 weeks are going to be interesting, and we will see how they turn out. We'll see if we can get Brian Daboll to say at least one interesting thing this morning when he talks.
And if you do, all praise to you and your colleagues in the press, because
yes, all praise.
The most frustrating guy to listen to.
He the funny part about that, before we sign off, the funny part about that is Daboll is a really nice guy. He really is. Get him away from the podium, get him into a situation where the notebooks are put away, the cameras are put away, the everything's put away, and he's not speaking for publication. And he's a really entertaining guy, and he's fun to talk to. But that is the way he has chosen to portray himself in public, and that's the Belichick school, the Saban school, and he's good at it. Give him credit; he's good at it, frustratingly good at it. Anyway, Tony, I think that's I think that's a good place for us to stop. It's the Daniel Jones era is over, and we see what happens next. So, Giants fans, thank you as always for listening, for watching. Please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.